Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Is this on?
No.
On? Is it on?
No.
Well, good morning. Good morning. And welcome to our second unconference, Roots and Wings. I'd like to first begin by thanking some of the people, some of the businesses in Missoula that have made this possible. The United University Congregational Church for the space today. The Missoula Independent gave us some advertising, Natural Grocers, the Empanada Joint for lunch today, Blue Sky Stewardship, and I think you saw the wild assortment from Bagels on Broadway and Great Harvest Bread, and Pam Walzer with some cookies, Orange Street Food Farm, Imagination Brewing Company, Michael Dean, his company Shayraw, the Pink Grizzly was loaned us this tree, and Cornutopia for some popcorn. So thank those sponsors. And to get us started, we have asked some people who are in our peace community to give us a few words as lightning keynotes to share their wisdom and inspire us with some things to get us thinking about roots and wings and how radical responsibility will fit into our work that we do. So I'd like to ask Rain Smith, Patrick Weaselhead, Amy Cilimberg and her daughter Ren, and Josh Slotnick will be here soon to start those lightning keynotes.
I'm so happy to be part of this circle, and I think everything I have to say is right here. And my poetry tends to be a little long-winded, so just jump right into it. We are all a family of different ethnicities, races, colors, and creeds, blood, sweat, tears, and belief. Past, present, future possibility. Heads, hands, and feet, mostly. We share ideas, art, heart, humor, hope, and hurt. Pain is given and received. The powerful, the truly powerful, will transform our pain and grief into the cures they need for relief. Brothers and sisters, let's climb a medicine tree, rooting deep beyond the deceit, growing strong in the compost of resolving tragedy. Winds of change teach us to bend without breaking. We strive to dance through the storms, for they're not of our making. Toxic corruption would break us in two, drawing the lines that separate me from you. The lines and the lies and the fog that censor our story. Burn away with the rise of our passionate glory. Thriving on the wealth of our interconnection, differences fulfill gaps, and we come alive in that tension. A wasteland created, inner separation from natural self, is lost sight of the gifts we come with to help. And ultimately, I know that whatever happens to my body, my spirit is free and whole. Golden energy, electric sun, cosmic egg, yolk spilling free to the flow, to remember, rejoin, reknow a frequency. All conscious life can tune in to be aware of time before surrendering. Supportive and on watch back to back, we trust in. And the more we practice profound acceptance, and that's acceptance of our natural diversity, not accepting the manipulation of a corporate tyranny. When we embody profound acceptance, the more we have for self and others respect in. surrendering, trusting, acceptance, respecting, and then all of a sudden you, star child, bursting with the glow of your inner wild, creativity, inspiration, inspiraling titillation, instigation involving intuition. Intuition is the investment in the development of our mind's meditativeness. This is the tool, divining context, for our beautiful heart's wisdom. However simple, may this reflect I and I and I in you. You are a dream. So, reconfigure your wings. Hollow bones of a mechanistic society must become fertile tubes for rooting all of our healing possibilities. The necessity of love refuting the tyrant deceit. Our phoenix feathers grow out of this drought of doubt. Learning how to know a point is not what this is about. Our story is never ending. Here written, actions, writing. In the insects, the toads, the shrimp, plankton, algae, and mold, whales, elephants, condors, cougars, and wolves, every microscopic to macrocosmic perspective to behold. The unfurling of our newly refeathered wings. Bound for breaking the marionette strings, burning the beams that made the ideal structures of conformity. We learn the proper rhythm, and our beating breaks the bridges we never needed. The access points they claim for efficiency began the desertification of the wild waters we need to truly be free. And that's why I come to criticize. What we wear or appear to be speaks nothing of the spirit that lies beneath, or what embodied dreams to reach. For millennia, costumes of customized iniquity, fashion designing spikes driven between steady relationships made obscene by prejudicial generalizing. When life we share in perpetuity, recycling energy eternally, and sharing our presence is the gift we are forgiving. So don't hesitate. Release the gate impeding your heart from trusting it is an essentially beating harmony. Listening to the ancestry weave old stories through the needle's eye, threading each dream, bound into a living tapestry, piece by piece. And over time we'll uplift humanity piece by piece. We create the remedy to the blank stares, stale speech, and artillery of hegemony. Upon horizons separate from hierarchy, we spread wings of light to catch flight on the wind of a new destiny. And unfurled, add together systemically every other's senses. From human to bee, from crystal to tree, now we are seen. Just breathe. Can we put aside values better left to each cultural community, then collectively network our communities to protect what we all need? Water, air, and soil quality to more than human foundations are necessary. All transformation betwixt this trinity fosters miraculous diversity, finding every way to dance, rejuvenate, and feed transformation through our epic journey. In the end, I pray we all make that peace.
If you don't mind, can you hear me okay? I prefer not to use this because I'm going to do something different. And if you want to turn that off, I'll be like President and drop the microphone. First of all, it's kind of nice that to be invited because of my background recently by Betsy saying that I'm a peace awardee for 2016. You ought to be at one of these things. So I gracefully accepted. So I'm going to walk around the back and talk about things. So what I think about is radical responsibility for a better world. You know, since I've been asked to do that, I've been contemplating, what do I need to do to find out what a better world would be? And I'm walking behind you so that my back is not to anybody, so that you see what I'm doing. I need to inspire and energize the participants, but I keep thinking as I talk to some people this morning, I'm energized as what I heard. And the conversation we talked about in Superior, how the name Superior comes to be. It's important for us to share that story to one of my colleagues that we're going to meet and find out a story to tell, because everybody has a story to tell. It's important. So I think you all have some information inside that needs to be unlocked, and unlock that so that you can find a radical responsibility for a better world. But I'm going to do something. I'm going to give you a charge this morning, because part of the activity of being involved with people is I always like to do this. When people are going someplace, I said, what's your charge? Our charge is to find a better world. And part of by finding a better world, we need to do some things. I also remember the key words in the United States Constitution. We the people. We means we are all the people in this country. That's important to understand. In order to form a more perfect union, a better world. You know, we have a constitution that says that, to form a better union, establish justice. You know, I hear about that guy in Stanford, they got 6 months, and he has the best lawyers helping him. I could attest that if I had done that, my butt would be in prison for 20 years because of this. And we all agree to that. So justice is important. Ensure domestic tranquility. If you have a household where your husband and wife or partner and partner are not together, you don't have domestic tranquility. You also have ripple effect. And so what happens to the personality is, what do you do with that ripple effect? It's important to understand that if we have the ripple effect and it's causing us to engage with other people in a negative fashion, we need to have domestic tranquility. Provide for the common defense. You know, there's a common defense. If I'm a Salish person and I can say I take care of the bison up there, and somebody says, no, you can't because we prefer to do it our way and administratively, you have to understand that. A common defense. Promote the general welfare. You know, I deliver Meals on Wheels. I did the food bank. I did driving DAV around. And I see what's the common general welfare that I like to promote? And somebody in previous speakers talked about systemic change. And I think I like to see about that systemic change as possible. And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, future generations. So it's not only now, but future generations. And one of the things I like to talk about is 7 generations. What did I learn from 2 previous generations? What am I promoting now? And what's going to happen with 2 generations in the future? And every time I do the Pledge of Allegiance at the football games and the basketball games, I remember some of the words. And I recall the last phrase, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I keep thinking, justice for all. Does that mean just some people, or does that mean all of us? So when we talk about a responsibility, think about that. Think about how we need to do that better to make this world so much better. So the issues I want to give you a charge for the day are: 1, be good stewards of Mother Earth. You know, you think about things. What can you do for Mother Earth that makes it sure that we sustain it for the 2nd generation, the 3rd generation from now? We must not be the generation responsible for irreversible damaging the environment. And that's really one of the things we have to hold to. I drive a car here, and I know I burn combustible fuel and what happens to that. And I keep thinking, what do I need to do to make some changes? Remember, if we are free, then we ought to have responsibilities toward others as well as ourselves. This is called respect. One of the things I really ride upon is respect. I'll respect you, but I need the respect back. And that's important for our society to have that respect. Always weigh your responsibilities to transform tomorrow's world into a society where peace, harmony, and fraternity, brotherhood and sisterhood, ought to exist in our actions. So it's important to understand that. Be responsible for our words and actions. Remember, speak the truth and expose lies. So when somebody tells me, Patrick, hold down the fort while I go do this, I'm thinking, why do I want to hold this fort down? So I say, hold down the teepee rigs. It's more pertinent to me, but you have to understand the words you use, how it impacts somebody else of a different culture, a different mindset, a different gender. Keep in mind the disenfranchised. And there are a lot of people who are disenfranchised. And understand them and understand why they are disenfranchised and try to help them. Pay attention to the hungry and the poor. There's a lot of people out there who are hungry and the poor. Pay attention to our responsibilities for world peace. We're seeing a lot of political views these days, and it's kind of interesting to see what happens. We are truly our brother's keepers, right? And part of that is we need to make sure that we understand what the words mean. And remember the words from one of our wonderful leaders in the past. It does not require many words to speak the truth. And all men were made by the same great spirit chief. They are all brothers. The earth is the mother of all people, and all people should have equal rights upon it. Chief Joseph. Lastly, ask questions from your heart, and you will receive answers from your heart. Thank you.
Do you want the mic?
I think we'll just try to talk loud. We're going to try to do it. Okay, so I'm Amy, and we're very honored to be here. This is my daughter, Ren. We've never done something like this, so it's a little bit, I'm not quite sure how to, yeah, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but thank you for having us. So we thought a lot about, in having been asked to speak here, about this, the title of today, Roots and Wings, and so I was thinking about, I came to Missoula more than 20 years ago, a couple decades ago, and really did put down roots. And it took a while. I felt like I had some roots here, but it took a while to really grow them deep and to sort of gain steam as far, especially as making the world a better place. I worked at the Y in the women's shelter. I got a master's degree and started working with research and science and doing bird work. Eventually worked with conservation, in the conservation realm, with wildlife and birds and climate change. And I started getting more and more thinking about the issue of climate change and our responsibility to do something about it to make the world a better place. And along the lines, almost 15 years ago, I had her. And it's been fun to think about the roots and the wings. So she came along, and it became more and more important that I feel like I need to be doing the things that will make the world a better place. So she has something to work with, right? She and her peers and her friends and kids her age around the world. So I started working, I actually started getting more and more working on this issue of global warming and working on it locally. And a little less than a year ago, with a group of people, leaders in this community, we started Climate Smart Missoula, a local effort to do more on this issue. It's less than a year old. There's lots of things that we can do, and I feel like all of us can do if you think locally around this issue, whether it's solar panels, or whether it's growing food, or whether it's thinking about social issues and social justice. Where do people go when it's smoky out and they can't breathe because they have asthma, or they're elderly and they can't get to clean air? How can we help solve those problems? Which link right to the work that the Peace Center has done for years. So when I first moved to Missoula, the first group that I really met, I think it was through Mark Newell, was the Peace Center. And I know that the work that I've done, maybe it's on the periphery of peace, but it's all connected. Locally to, you think about the world. I mean, what's happening in Syria today is a climate issue because of extreme weather and drought. It's all connected in that big world. So I like to think about the work I'm doing personally in that it is reflected in and connected to this larger issue of social justice and peace. And I really thank the Peace Center for being here and helping me establish and grow those roots. And then from those roots, we get wings.
So about 5 years ago, when I was 9 years old.
Can you guys all hear?
Yeah.
Yes.
Me me and 3 of my friends decided that we wanted to do something to make the world that we live in a better place. So we started an organization called SOAP, which stands for Save Our Amazing Planet. And we did this because our planet that we live on truly is amazing, and we want to keep it that way. And a lot of this stemmed from having been out in the wilderness and in nature so much when we were young, thanks to our parents. And they taught us how beautiful this earth is, and we really wanted to keep it that way. And so when we first started SOAP, we started out small, because we were only 9 years old, and we did things like lemonade stands and selling other items, and we always donated all of the money we made to different organizations. And it was often hard to choose which ones because there's so much we wanted to do. Climate change, world peace, endangered species, helping people who are struggling. So there's so many issues that we wanted to help, so we try to balance it all out. And as we grew older, SOAP continued to grow. And now we do a lot of different events. We have a summer camp for little kids. We've done a fundraiser dinner. We did one for the Peace Center. And we choose organizations to donate our money to that support issues that are important to us. And part of the reason that we started SOAP was because we wanted to be generous. And generosity is a super important part of making the world a better place. And so we choose to be generous with our time and with our money, and by doing these events and donating what we make. But there are lots of ways you can be generous. It's not limited to giving away money. You can be generous with your love. And the great thing about being generous with love is the more you give, the more you have, unlike money. And another thing that SOAP has done to help this planet is working with things that we are passionate about. And because the world does not need people who are doing things that they hate in the attempt to make the world a better place. It's not going to make the world a better place. We need people that are doing things they're passionate about, and that will make the world a better place. For example, some of our passions are we love working with younger kids. So that's why we started our SOAP camp, which we do every summer. And we also love to cook. So that's why we've done fundraiser dinners. And the last thing that is really important to SOAP and to the world is having fun. And the main reason that we started SOAP when we were 9 years old was to have fun, because that's what kids want to do. They want to have fun. And to us, donating our time and money and helping to make the world a better place sounded fun. And it is fun. It makes you feel great. And SOAP has brought me a lot of joy and fun times over the years, because helping to make the world a better place is fun. And people who are having fun also make the world a better place. And it's also fun to laugh with your friends. And that's what SOAP has brought for me too. And laughing makes the world a better place also.
So I'm pretty lucky. So I get to wake up every morning thinking about the opportunities to make the world a better place, and then Ren wakes up and then we figure out how to do it together. And it's not always fun, because we know it's also really hard work. I think in terms of this roots, wings, radical responsibility, the last thing that I just wanted to say is I do think we have a responsibility to make the world a better place and to bring more young people into it, because they want to do things. And a lot of times, whether it's young or old or in the middle, people need to be asked and they need to be drawn in. A couple days ago, I was weeding at the edge of the road with my neighbor, and we talked about this, because I was talking to her about this event. And she said, you know, I'm sort of shy and I'm sort of self-conscious, and I don't know how to get involved with groups and with people because I'm afraid. And so I've really been thinking a lot about the work I do and the conversations you guys have here today. Think about how we can bring in those people that are a little bit hesitant or a little bit shy or a little bit young and they don't know how to come into it, and bring them in to take radical responsibility. And that final word, I think, is let's take that word radical. It has this negative connotation. I think it's radical not to be doing things to make the world a better place, if you want to take it that way. It's radical to be taking your kid and teaching her to ski and swim and have fun, and not be showing her that that's not what the world is all about. We need to be reaching out and helping those who need our help. So we need to use that radical and that positive way of taking everybody and bringing everybody in and having a lot of fun doing it. So have a great day today. Ren and I are not going to be here, but I really look forward to seeing what comes out of this wonderful gathering.
Hello, my name is Josh Slotnick, and I have to say, if Betsy had told me that I was going to have to follow Ren, I probably would have said no.
We made you go fast because we didn't want to follow you.
Oh, I've done tons of public speaking, and now I'm nervous because I have to follow Ren.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tell you a bit of a story, kind of a personal story that happened to me about 6 months ago. And I told this story once before in public, and hopefully you weren't at that event. I thought a lot about which thing to talk about, and this was closest to me in the Peace Center, I thought. So last fall, I had the good fortune of having 4 days of work in Washington, D.C., which for a farmer is pretty unusual. Why would that I would even be there? But the big thing for this story is that I had 1 day off. 1 day all to myself in Washington, D.C. And as you may know, if you've been to D.C., there's that beautiful mall with all those museums, and it's free. You can go to any one you want, and you don't pay $30 or something, so if you go to one for a little bit, you don't like it, you can go to another. So I just started at one end, and I just walked into the first building, thinking I didn't have to be too committed. It was the Museum of the American Indian. And I don't know if you've been to this museum, but it is really, really well done. And I have to confess, I did have an agenda going there first. A friend of mine told me that they have an amazing cafe where they do foods from all these different regions of North America. I thought, I'll go there, it'll be like brunch, and I'll eat some. And I wandered around, and the displays are really, really powerful. By the time it came for lunch, I couldn't eat anything. It was just, imagine what the story is, it's just that story. It's told really, really well. It's this big gut punch. You're just floored. The grief and sorrow and tragedy is overwhelming. There are elements of cultural preservation, but that's not what I took away from this. It was just deep sorrow. So I wandered down the mall with all this deep sorrow in my head, and I'm just by myself, so I haven't ready to share these things with them. Just walking around. Make a right turn. Oh, I'm going into Museum of American History. I call it just bear to the left, because I kind of bear to the left, right? So bear to the left, and I'm in the African American History wing. They're building a new African American museum down at the other end of the mall, but it's not done yet. I just wandered into this one. I spent the next few hours there. Again, a big sucker punch. So I'm walking back up the mall, late afternoon, and I have this sense that all around me are monuments to all these things that Americans have done. Great art, great architecture, music, construction, everything. All these incredible acts of humanity, of Americans. All done, all of it, with stolen land and stolen labor. All of it. And so, what does this do? I'm just wandering with this stuff in my head. And the first thought is, all of it is false. It's all hollow. We gotta tear it all down. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. This is just the first thought that jumped into my head. I didn't have to walk too far to realize, but what's being created has lots of power. Lots can be done with it all. Tearing it down doesn't make any sense. But then what to be done? And the analogy that came into my head by the time I got to the botanical garden at the far end was to look at our culture, giant American culture, kind of the way a person would look at a brownfield site or an old factory. So a brownfield site is a piece of land where some industry typically had been done. The industry has come and gone. There's no longer a mill there or a refinery. But what's left in its wake is a bunch of waste in the ground. Or a big factory. They're not making glue anymore. Now it's all empty. And what have we done with these types of spaces and places in the modern era is we repurpose them. We take what was once used for something maybe that wasn't so great, or there were some terrible consequences, and we remake it. We see these all over the place, where once was a factory, and now it's low-income housing. That's all beautiful, right? Or once was a brownfield site, and now it's a park. We don't just scrape the whole thing clean and just make it go away, we repurpose it. So my thought was, that's what we need to do with our culture. Repurpose our culture, which has been pushed in one direction for a really long time. And that one direction has basically been to make people who look like me and have my degree of privilege have wonderful lives. That's pretty much the direction of our culture. And things that are outside of that don't get a whole lot of attention. And we as people are really good at getting done what we set out to do. But the things that are on the edges that we don't set out to do don't typically get done. So this is just all in my head, and I get back, it's winter time, I don't come up with any conclusions on where to go with this, it's just bubbling in my head. February comes along, and I'm a vegetable farmer. It's greenhouse season. And I'm teaching students in the greenhouse at the Peace Farm how to water. So you have a big table. On the table are trays of plants, little tiny baby plants. And I say the same thing I've been saying for years, because it's still true. Corners and edges, corners and edges. So when you're watering, you aim for the corners and the edges, and the middle just takes care of itself. You don't even have to worry about it if you take care of the corners and edges. So one day I'm talking about this, and that museum day in DC is still stuck in my head. But okay, repurpose the culture, that's great. How do we do that? And then it kind of comes to me. It's corners and edges. Our main thing, basically, like I said, our main thing has been to create wonderful lives for people who look just like me. And the folks who are on the corners and edges, the land that's on the corners and edges, wilderness, rivers, things that are just on the edges, we don't put a lot of attention to. What if we can swap this around, like we're watering in the greenhouse? Let's make our focus the corners and the edges, because the middle is going to be fine. We don't have to worry about anybody who looks like me and has my degree of privilege. Stop thinking about us.
Yeah, right on.
But corners and edges, that's the people and land that are always on the extra. And this is what we've been doing in our culture. Like, well, we're going to go forward with making money in wonderful colleges and all kinds of great opportunities for people who look like me, and then we'll throw a little affirmative action here, or we'll toss a few acres at wilderness over there, or maybe we'll do a super fun site. But basically what we're doing is making sure people like me have a fine life. Let's swap that around. So now, okay, great, how do we do that? So this is where the radical responsibility part comes. We put it out to you. In everything that you do, think about putting the corners and edges first. And for all the people who are here, the work that you do, the volunteers and you do, all the things you do, you know what that recipe is going to look like. Instead of, well, I'll try and put a little justice in on Sunday afternoon, or I'll do this cleanup thing once a year. Make justice the main thing. Make concern for the corners and edges the main thing. And the middle part is just going to be fine.
Wow, thank you guys. You guys did an amazing job of getting us started here. Roots and wings. How will you take radical responsibility for a better world? There is an African proverb that says, if you stand tall, it is because you stand on the shoulders of many ancestors. I'm going to put a little vision in your head right now. 30 years ago, there was a group of Missoulians who got together to say, you know, they were inspired by some of the monthly potlucks that talked about peace and justice issues, and they said, we need to go further than monthly potlucks. We need to have a place that is an actual resource center where people can come and learn and grow and network together and connect with each other, have a resource library, a place where people could meet. Those meetings were the birthplace of the Jeannette Rankin Peace Center that I have the privilege of being the executive director of. And those meetings happened right in this basement, right below us. We are standing on the shoulders of our ancestors, the roots of this organization, the Jeannette Rankin Peace Center. Those meetings, the first office is right downstairs in the basement here. So I think that's pretty cool. We have had numerous events over the years, multitude of staff and board and volunteers, and 30 organizations that had their start sponsored by the Jeannette Rankin Peace Center over the 30 years that we've been here. These things are the wings that we have sprouted as an organization. Today, we're here to figure out what issues need wings for the future. And I'm delighted to see so many of you here with us, standing in celebrating our common roots, and being willing to put yourself out there to discuss and find and take responsibility for giving wings to the future. We have a centerpiece here that has been put together to kind of carry that theme forward in your head. We have a tree with roots, lovely long roots, peace sign and some peace cranes that represent the wings. There's also a scrapbook that has some of the beginning documents and people and things from the very first years of the Peace Center getting started. So our history there is included. So throughout the day, may this remind you of our roots and also inspire you in many ways that your ideas and your passions can take wings. Today is actually also the birthday of Jeannette Rankin.
Oh, yay.
She is the ultimate root upon which we stand for peace. She unfurled her wings to transform our nation, to give women the right to vote, and then give them a seat at the table, to stand up for human rights and civil rights, and to be a brave force for peace in the world. Since its very inception, 30 years ago, the Jeannette Rankin Peace Center has been a place to try to reflect and build on her legacy and the legacy of the people that founded the organization, to continue to be a place where we can reflect and dialogue about what's possible, about what's real, and how we make those two things come together. So today, this gathering is a continuation of that vision and that message. You are the ones that have always driven our way forward. Nothing that we did as an organization was ever championed except by the fact that someone raised the issue of something that was important and needed to be done. So today, your passions and interests will continue to move this organization forward and mold the future. Our coordinating council, many of them are here, will be listening so that we have ears to what is important to you, our members, the people that have driven the organization for these 30 years and 30 years longer. So I encourage you to take notes, participate fully, and help us create the story that will give wings to the future for us. And now, I'd like to introduce Harold Shinsada. He is our open space facilitator for the day. I met him several years ago, and last year was a dream come true for us to be able to do this with him, and we're very fortunate to be able to do it again. So he will explain the day, and then we will get into some hopefully wonderful, wonderful conversations. Harold?
I actually hope I'm not going to need to use this. We'll see. So I'm kind of your mic check guy, because really this event with our wonderful, amazing warm-up speakers, kind of like warm-up band. I don't mean to disrespect any of you guys, but in order for us to have radical responsibility, people need to step up with their own passion and take responsibility for themselves, and not just rely on the wonderful leaders that, like Rain and others who are here to inspire us. So I'm just the mic check guy. This technology, open space technology, was named it's kind of a joke. It was an accident in a way, but it makes some interesting, profound sense, like many jokes do. And so what we're inviting you to do shortly is fill up that wall. That's our agenda. And so we're asking you to step forward and take responsibility, radical responsibility, to take wings to the things that you care about the most and invite those to have fun with you together. And I'll explain shortly the mechanics of it, and there's a few more other mechanics that are important. So this is what they call the marketplace generation period, and then we'll fill that up. And then when we're done, we're going to come together after session 5 at 4:30. We're going to come together and kind of harvest and reflect together. And that's very, very important. So I know some people can't stay all day, but if you can be here at 4:30 for the closing circle to come back to community together, that's really important. So just to start, the reason why I'm walking in a circle is it helps me to remember to look at everybody, but it's more because it's not about me. It's so that you can look past me and notice who else here is in the circle with us. And these wonderful people have taken their time and energy to be here with you. And so these are the right people for this event. And trust that the creator, the great architect, or whatever metaphor is more appropriate or works best for everyone, that's inviting us all here in this space together, to trust that and to trust each other's presence. I invite you to look past me, to notice who's here, notice who might feel drawn to, connect to, and who you might not have noticed. Who here might be possibly someone you wouldn't have thought of that could maybe have that clue that you never imagined in the corners and the edges that will make the hugest difference in your life and in bringing peace to the world. And to do that, I'm going to ask you also to now close your eyes for a couple of minutes, because people did ask for a little bit more presence. And for many communities that I do open space for in the business world, they're not all that ready to do the mindfulness stuff, but I think most of us here are probably comfortable with that. So I'm going to actually sit down with you for a second. And I'll invite you to feel your feet on the ground and your seat on the chair. And just take a few breaths and just be here. Maybe another breath. Thank you. So all these pens and papers here, they're your tool for helping other people know what you're talking about, and also to give it a time and place, to root it in the earth and time, 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions. And so what we've got is a map over there, which isn't oriented with the compass, so hopefully you can maybe use that as a guide, but there are also letters. So that's A, and that's B, and then out in that lobby area where you met in the morning are C, D, and E, and possibly F in the corner there.
F is down.
Oh, I'm sorry, F, you go downstairs when you go to the lobby, so that's the F room. There's a nice table in there with chairs. And that's probably all we're going to need, but if you want to hang out outside, there's also H and G, and possibly I is in the West Wing. I'd recommend not picking I unless you really want to be far away from everyone else. which you may want. I mean, that might be the perfect place. So, so that's the map, and those are the locations. And there's also restrooms if you go past the sanctuary and you go down that ramp. There's the men's and women's rooms. And then another bit of mechanics here is the session 2 is a lunch session. So it's kind of a working session. And that might be not the best time to do a session if you really want to focus. And if you just want to network, that might be a good time to just network. But if you want to, then please use that and invite other people who also want to use that. But I recommend that you not think people are going to show up right at noon, because people need to get their lunch. They're probably going to show up, 12:15, 12:30, and that's why it's going to 1:30. So you have a little time to get your food and arrive. All right, so again, before I get you to, I'll model how you're gonna do that. But there's some principles, and I want to honor the tradition that helped me remember the 7 pieces of this event, which is the Native American wisdom. But it's more of just a grounding of the directions, 7 directions. And so the first direction, the north, is whoever comes are the right people. And for me, the north has a sense of like the true north, or the compass direction that the needle points of what's important. So whoever comes are the right people, and so that's that direction. And then the east is where it starts is the right time. So rather than worrying about people not showing up at 12 or 12:30 or whenever your session is, whenever the event actually starts, the conversation starts, consider that to be the right time. We're inviting people to come, and inspiration doesn't always happen on the clock. And then for the south, whatever happens is the only thing that could have. And the south is usually hotter, at least in the north. You go south, it's hotter. So just at least in Turtle Island, this is true. So that for me is the whatever happens is the only thing that could happen, which is kind of trusting and allowing for what arrives and what happens to be what needed to happen. And then the west, where the sun sets, when it's over, it's over. This is also an important principle that when it's not over, it's not over. So if your meeting feels like it's over after half an hour, don't just force it to fill out the time slot. Let people go do something else. And if there's still energy, someone may have scheduled to use your space afterwards, so please respect them for that, for their reservation, and let them use the space. But you can either agree to meet at another time, or you can maybe find an empty space to move to, and we can always add more spaces. And then wherever it happens is the right place. And so for me, that's kind of the Mother Earth, the down direction. And that was inspired by Tahir Square. There used to be only 4 principles. But the 5th one is allowing it to not only happen in the places we planned, but wherever place it happens, if that's by the food or if it's outside, just allow it to be wherever the place happens is the right place. And then for above, usually this is done last, but I'm going to do it now. Is be prepared to be surprised. And then so what I see this as above is because a lot of times we put expectations about what's going to happen and what can happen. Let that be unlimited. Let the sky be the limit for that. And then for the center, the within, the 7th direction, I consider that the law of 2 feet. So 2 feet are grounded, but the reason why I see this one as centered is this is the core principle of open space, is to pay attention to where you're learning or you're contributing. So if you find yourself in a place where you're neither learning or contributing, you're likely harming whatever's happening in that space. and take responsibility for that. If there's something that you feel that needs to happen, we're really trusting you to make this event great. And when I see that, when I see the leadership giving trust to the people in this way, in the open space, it always seems to just be magical. And that the reason why is because all of you are being asked to take responsibility to make this awesome. So if you just do that, you listen inside, really great things can happen. So as a result of this law of 2 feet, which is more like a recommendation in some ways, and in a weird way, whether or not you want to own this is kind of true. If you choose to be someplace where you're not learning or contributing, that's kind of the things you're choosing. So notice that. But there are 2 roles in open space that we represent with these 2 insects, these 2 critters. And they're really great metaphors. So the first one is the bee. And the bee does not stay in one session. They just buzz and they cross-pollinate with different sessions. So that's a perfectly valid role. Sometimes it can be kind of annoying that they pop in the middle of your session and then you have to catch them up, which is your choice to whether or not to do that. But they might just drop little little things right in the middle of your session that you might not have expected. Take it in. It might be the thing that inspires brilliant things. But watch if you are a bumblebee, because this is the thing I love to do when I first went to open space with that freedom. I just buzzed around everywhere, and I didn't pay attention to my own ability to rest. So be careful of colony galactosaur. Try not to do too much coffee, and take care of your toxin intakes. Then the next role that is a really beautiful role is the butterfly. And the butterfly, they don't go to any of the sessions we carefully came up with and invited them to attend. They just maybe go outside and maybe look at the tree, or they just stand around and they stay in this circle. Well, the butterfly in nature has a wonderful function, and that is to be beautiful. That's their role, is to be beautiful and to attract. So if you just are relaxed and in your own center, wherever you are, you might just attract, and I've done this many times, oh my goodness, there comes another butterfly. And some of the most amazing things for me in open space have happened to being a butterfly. And there's a couple of metaphors from the butterfly that I think are valuable to mention, which is that the butterflies come from caterpillars, and the process of evolving from a caterpillar to a butterfly is they form a chrysalis, and the butterfly cells kind of dissolve into a goo. And inside that goo rise what are called imaginal cells, and the imaginal cells start out disconnected. They're just separate. And the caterpillar, as it's dissolving, those cells actually are somewhat unfriendly to the imaginal cells. They're a little hostile. But the imaginal cells have a higher energy. They have a higher frequency, so they're able to overcome that hostility. And then they start connecting into what they call imaginal discs that form the different parts of the butterfly, the wing, the eye, the antenna. And they're separate at first. But then then the networks start to form until you have the butterfly. So for me, this is just such a beautiful, beautiful kind of, as we move into evolving into whatever is coming next, to remember that. Starting out as an imaginal cell, you might be lonely at first, but to find your fellow imaginal cells, to form that part that's going to evolve into the thing that can take wing. And then the other metaphor around the butterfly comes from math and science. And they call it it's a chaos theory. And there's a thing that they discovered doing the math around weather, is that the extreme sensitivity to initial conditions, which causes a butterfly's wing, this is the metaphor they use, at one side of the world can actually cause a hurricane on the other. And this is also representative of the power of the individual and the power of small groups. I think Margaret Mead said that all changes came from small groups. So allow the possibility that if you're in that right place and that right time, and I think Buckminster Fuller also used a word called trim tabs, which is a tiny little rudder on the big rudder of a big ship. That tiny little rudder can move the big rudder, which can move the whole ship. And Buckminster Fuller on his gravestone has, "I am trim, call me trim tab." And he's been incredibly influential if you haven't heard of him. So that's my spiel. So here's the technology part. I'm going to step away from here shortly. You can either use the mic or not. I'm inviting you to come up here, take a piece of paper. You can either bring it back to your chair or find a table if you want to write your session that you want to talk about. Let's say I want to talk about ants. So your topic is very important. And then your name. These are the two things we're asking you to put on this. Notice I'm not putting a time and a place, just those two things. So once you've got this composed, I invite you to come to the center of the circle. You can either use the mic or not. And then announce your session.
Hello, my name is Harold. I'd like to talk about ants.
Right? Got that? Then you're going to go over here and you're going to say, when do I want to talk about this? Do I want to talk about during lunch? Do I want to talk here? So you're going to pick one of these times and then one of these locations. And you can have it outside. You can use this map here. Or you could even say, get a thing in there and just say, I want to do this on a walk. Let's start at the gym. So you can put your own location, but these guys here are for your convenience. So you can use these guys. And then get one of these pieces of glue tape. I put it up. And like that. All right? Hopefully that's straightforward. And then what we're going to ask you to do is to go back to your seat. And the reason why this is important that you go back to your seat is because other people are going to be inviting people to their sessions. And if you start hanging out here and then start talking with other people, hey, I like this ants, this Harold guy, he said this sounds like a really cool guy, I want to go to whatever he wants to talk about. Or, nah, I don't want to go to Harold's. So it's best if you come back to your seat and wait till everyone's done announcing their sessions. And once there's a long enough lull, then I will open up the marketplace. And what you're going to do is you're going to come over here once everything's been posted. And it's not to say that people can't add things later. You can add things, this is your wall. You can add things anytime during the day. But just for flow's sake, once we hit a lull, then we're going to open the marketplace. And you're going to come here and you're going to go like, oh, Harold wants to talk about ants at noon, but this other person wants to talk about bees at noon. And I want to go to both of those. So Harold, would you move your session to the morning? So you can ask people to do that, but because of the structure of this event is asking people to take responsibility for stuff, we're asking you to not move anyone else's stuff. So be respectful and ask them if that's okay. And also, let's say, Harold, why can't we talk about ants and bees at the same time? And you can ask me, hey, let's talk about these at the same time. It's kind of a similar topic, right? It's like, yeah, it's a good idea. Then you can put it together. It's like, nah, I'd rather not. And the really great thing can happen with nearly identical sessions and different people talking about them. So that's okay too. So that's basically it. There's one other thing I'll ask you to do, and I'm probably going to forget something. But there's one other thing. So we've got clipboards on all of the locations. What we're asking is to let this event radiate outward, and in order to do that, it's helpful to take notes. So please use the clipboards over there, take notes. You can also use the easels and then take pictures of the stuff on your easels, or bring your materials after your sessions are done and bring them to the newsroom area, and we'll put them up on the wall, or we'll find some way to put those into the final report from the event that will make available to the rest of the Jeannette Rankin Peace Center community. And that's my spiel.